Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. If you've not caught up with the podcast before, it was once written by the comedy legend, poetry goddess Pam Ayres. I think she summed it up when she said, "I love those boys on the Comedy Slab. They are more fun than glitter. And when they start to argue, it really makes me titter. Their podcast makes me giggle, and it always feels quite racy. But I couldn't choose between them, that O'Connor and that Lacey."
Oh, did you just write that shortly before recording?
I wrote that actually whilst I was feeding the kids tonight.
Amazing.
Not really, because you didn't hear what I fed the kids. That's because I wasn't concentrating properly and doing what I was supposed to be doing. But anyway, the dog was upset, to suffice to say, because he didn't get what he ended up with the cat food. Oh, it was such a mess. It really was. I don't know why, but Pam Ayres? She was, of course, the Australian.
Pomme de terres, as she's known, where she lives.
The Australian poetess, Pam Ayres. I just missed that kind of. There was that innocence, wasn't there, about that poetry, and it was that comedy. Do you think, or does that count? It doesn't, does it really?
I have to say, I don't want to cause offence to you or to Pom or Pam, her better-known sibling, but not quite to my taste. And I couldn't believe she had a comeback. Really.
Let's move on very swiftly. It is the Comedy Slab podcast. Me, Shane, and him, Adrian, will watch, listen to, or in some way digest. In fact, those are probably the only two ways that you can digest a podcast, do a comedy rather, if I'm honest with myself and everybody else. And then we get back together, we reconvene, and we have a look at it, and we decide how we felt about it. And sometimes we'll have a bit of a rough and tumble about it and a bit of an argument. Other times we're in total agreement. And other times we're in total bewilderment. I suggest this is probably going to be one of those weeks. We will play a couple of clips from the comedy show that we've chosen. We choose alternately. It was my turn to choose. I can't speak tonight. It was my turn to choose last week, or it was my turn to cheese. Last week. And I sound like the policeman from Hello, Hello, don't I? Yeah, I've interviewed him as well, nice guy. And we'll also give it a mark out of 5 each, giving it a grand total out of 10. Don't think I've missed anything out. Do we want to, before we go to the comedy news, do you want me to tell you what it was that we're looking at this week? Just to
that has happened,
when Adrian
but
goes,
not for a while.
I've watched the wrong show. Yes. Thankfully, yeah. Series 1, Episode 1 of a Sky comedy. You don't get to say that very often, do you? A Sky comedy, Code 404. So Code 404. We'll tell you more about that in a little while, but obviously you can pause us if you want and scuttle away and go and have a quick squint and find out what that's all about. Me? But we will tell you all in a second. First of all, comedy news.
Yes, well, I'm getting very statuesque. I timed that just as you raised a mug to your lips. Yes, well, that's good. We've got 2 stories on the theme of statues. Do you have any particular preference for order?
No. I mean, well, should we do the one that gets nicked because it's from a paper up my neck of the woods? Although it's a story from down your neck of the woods, isn't it? I think.
It's Manor Park, East London. Well, yeah. It's a tidy walk from where I am in Kent. But
it certainly isn't anything to do with the Express and Star in Wolverhampton and the Black Country, has it really? So I don't really
Possibly not, although that's where we're reading it from. So we're deeply indebted to them. And indeed, it would appear to be the Press Association who might have supplied the story.
Right.
So it is, not for the first time, but for the 4th time, 2 statues, a pair of statues of Laurel and Hardy have been half-inched, because it's in London, so I can do Cockney rhyming slang, because I'm a geezer. Oi! Been half-inched, pinched, from outside the home of Leslie Haylett, who is, of course, because it's a British story, she has an age attached. She's 61. Not quite sure of the relevance of that, but hey. And she bought these, a slight confusion over heights here. You thought you'd read in one version of the story that they were called giant statues. Then it turned out they're 6 foot tall, which is not greatly off.
Stan was 5'6", and Ollie was 6 foot and half an inch.
Okay. Well, that's why they were half inch then.
That was the half inch that makes the difference.
But okay, well maybe they've made Stan Laurel a bit taller.
You made it sound like I imagined that, but the headline in the Independent is couple have giant Laurel and Hardy statues stolen 4 times. Well, they're not.
Yeah, well, I guess if you expect I don't know, is the norm if a person has a statue at their home, do we expect it to be less than life size? Because that's possibly why they think it's giant.
I suppose. I mean, yeah. If you, well, yeah. But if it's the size of the thing that it's a statue of, how is that giant?
It's life size, as
Exactly.
you said before we hit record.
Yeah,
although it's like you, Stan Laurel is larger than life. If he was 5'6", he's been stretched to 6 foot. But the thing here is, I mean, obviously I have sympathy for them, but the figures have been stolen 4 times, and for me, the nub of the story is the clue is the statues are outside the front of the home. Now, no one should steal anyone's property just because it's outside the front of their home, or indeed anywhere in the vicinity thereof. But wouldn't you think, if it was you, after the second and third time, you might think, tell you what, I'll put them out the back, we'll still have them, but they won't be on show to the whole street and they won't be so tempted.
What's even more curious, though, is that they've supplied a photograph for the kind people at PA, Press Association. And the only one that they have is where they have a ladder outside their front door.
Which is almost an invitation to burgle.
Which you kind of think. I mean, I think there looks on the roof. It looks like it was Christmas time, and they were putting the Christmas decorations up.
Oh, right. Well, maybe Santa was up the ladder then, or coming down the ladder. I'm not sure.
But you'd have thought somebody would have nicked that aluminium ladder before they nicked the statue. But who knows? Well,
no. I mean, I would have thought aluminium ladders are 2 a penny, or not exactly, but statues of. I'm so having to fight saying. Fry and Laurie, Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah,
I'm such a creature of my own age.
I have to say, talking about statues, and they're not a particularly nice statue, are they? These things, they're like a fiberglass jobby.
Well, it's sentimental value, though, isn't it? Have a heart.
But if you get the chance, as I did, to go to the Lake District. And my wife said, "Oh, do you fancy going away to the Lake District for the weekend?" I said, "Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. We'd book something." And I said, "Oh, can we stop off at a place? There's a place called Ulverston in the Lake District. Can we stop off there, or just visit there at least, or whatever?" She said, "Yeah, sure. Why?" And I said, "Well, it's the birthplace of Stan Laurel." And I've never been, and I thought, being that close, I'd want to go and have a look. And to my absolute delight, when we got to it's not a very big town, Ulverston, it has to be said. It's got its own theatre. It's got the Coronation Theatre, and right outside the Coronation Theatre, leaning against the lamppost, is a statue of Laurel and Hardy.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, a proper metal one, the whole 9 yards.
Life size or giant?
Oh, let's not get into that. I didn't measure them. Do you know what I mean? I have no idea. But
anyway,
I was going to say, it brings us on to this Bobby Ball thing, doesn't it, that you've seen? The Bobby Ball statue is this?
Yes, this is. I think it's a dead cert now. I was going to say it's a mooted, but it's a commission. So someone who London-based. Oh, it's London Link again. Get everywhere, don't they? There's wretched Londoners like me. London-based sculptor Ben Twiston Davies, what a wonderful name, or Davies, has been commissioned to produce the statue of Bobby Ball, which will sit in Bobby Ball's hometown of Lytham St Anne's, which we all know is.
So it's a Blackpool way, isn't it?
Yeah, near Blackpool.
Is it just up from? It's just down from Blackpool, isn't it, Lytham? I think. Nice golf course there. Don't you think that's great though? The Bobby Ball thing is. I think that's what a lovely tribute to pay.
Yeah, I think definitely deserved. And what I loved about him was his branching out into acting more. A lot of comedy acting, wasn't it, mostly? But he did a little bit of serious acting. But certainly he played the Lee Mack character's dad.
That's right, yeah.
Not Going Out.
Yeah.
And very marvellously too, I would say. And then we saw him in, was it Meet the Cockfields? The Cockfields.
The Cockfields, yeah.
Yeah. So he was one of the characters' dad there as well. And very, putting a good turn.
Yeah, good news all round, I think. Actually, you mentioned Not Going Out, and that kind of segues quite smoothly into this week's programme that we're slabbing. Did you realise that at all? Did you know the connection?
Writers, isn't it? Or at least one of the writers.
Very good, yeah. Daniel Peake, the writer of the show that we're looking at this week, Code 404, is or was or still is, because they're still going, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right, what are they, about 9th series of Not Going
That rings a
There?
bell, Series 9, but it maybe even more.
Funny show, that, isn't it? Because it's kind of, I keep looking at that one and thinking, should we slab it? Because it's kind of morphed into something else from what it started.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued to see what it's morphed into, because I haven't watched it for a while. So I haven't seen the morphage, if you will.
It kind of became My Family.
Which we all know is your favourite.
Or Outnumbered, which is my other favourite.
It's a trip down your most nightmarish sitcoms, isn't it?
I Wake Up Screaming is not the name of the comedy. That's exactly what I do, just thinking about it. Anyway, shall we have a look then? Code 404, as I say, Sky comedy, and I say that it's a Kudos and water and power production for Sky. But they do commission from time to time. I said it was a rare thing. They're not as rare as hen's teeth, but they're not as prevalent as we'd like them to be. But they do come along from time to time, and it is basically the story about this guy who's a police officer, and he dies in a sting that goes wrong, and he's brought back with enhancements, I think, is the best way to describe it. Before we get into
augmentation, maybe.
Augmentation. It's probably a word we may well come back to a little later on. Before we have a listen to a clip, I'll give you a bit of a flavour for what it's all about. Any thoughts before you sat down to watch? Did you know about its existence, or?
Not at all. No. I'm glad, nay, borderline smug, that I worked out that 404 had something to do with error 404, which anyone who spent more than 5 minutes on the interweb will know that's where you get sent. It's like room 101, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
If you mistype an address, URL, whatever, website address, that's the sort of purgatory you end up in if that page doesn't exist or has somehow been lost.
So you got no preconceptions, no. I mean, did you have a look at the story and kind of figure out what it was going to be about, or before you sat down, or did you just go in cold?
No, I went in pretty cold because I thought that's what I tend to do with the first viewing or listening to the show that we put on the notional slab of comedy each time. Obviously, sometimes I would have seen the show maybe in past years, so you can't completely wipe the brain clean. But no, I thought I'd try and work out with my what have I called it before now? I can be plot challenged sometimes. Right. I'm not the brightest spark in the box following a plot, so it's all the more reason to make myself struggle a bit if there is going to be a struggle, because I can't be the only one. Maybe I am. Actually, I fear I am. But it's worth at least coming in clean and then seeing, well, how much does the writer help you? How much does the entire setup draw you in, and so on and so forth?
I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's nice to sit down as if you've just caught the continuity announcer, of course, of one of the brethren you used to be, saying, and now on Sky, Code 404. And you think, well, all right, what's this? I've no idea what it. You don't even know it's a comedy, maybe. So coming in that cold sometimes helps, doesn't it? Really, but
yeah.
All right, let's have a clip then. First clip, quite near the top of the show. Police Officer John Major. We'll come back to that name, I'm guessing, as we go through. Played by the fabulous Daniel Mays. I think he's a brilliant actor, a great straight actor. Interesting to see him in comedy. He's been shot dead when a sting operation goes badly wrong. And we see all of that happen. And then we fast forward to about a year later, and Roy, who's his well, I suppose ex-partner now, because he thinks that John's dead, played by Stephen Graham. Roy's visiting John's grave when all of a sudden he's accosted by a figure in black.
Hello, Roy. I thought you'd say Jesus, so I could go, no, but we both came back from the dead.
Jesus.
And the moment's gone now.
When I saw you die, John, I gave you CPR. I felt your blood running through my fingers when I tried to get your heart going.
I'm the best cop in the unit, mate. They had to bring me back.
They? Who were they?
The geeks, the techie pods.
Oh, my God.
No, not him, you tool. He's flying a plane. Her. They've rebuilt me with computers. Yeah, she'll explain all the science bit.
So are you like a robot?
I'm the same DI major who's been saving your ass for the last 10 years. I've just been augmented.
What's that mean?
What, the word augmented? I don't know, they all keep using it. I should probably check.
Does your wife know?
What augmented means?
No, that you're back from the dead, you dickhead.
I thought you could help me tell her. You two always got along.
And therein lies one of the complexities of the show. Now, I've struggled a bit here because I made the mistake of writing my headlines after the first viewing. I did this last time, I think.
Yeah.
And then I changed my, I was going to say orientation. That could be misconstrued. And it doesn't usually happen that quickly. But I reoriented a little about the show. Not 100%, not 180 degrees. So anyway, but there are two headlines, but they date from slightly frostier reception first time round. So you've got 404 YOY.
But did it become more than one headline? Have you got a headline, what used to be? And you go, yeah, I've got a headline, there's my headline, there's your headline. Now it's, have you got a bag of headlines?
Well, you came up with, you claimed 8 the other week.
I didn't know,
exaggeration.
because I didn't say any of them, did I? So it's, you know.
Oh, right. You hinted at it, and now I've forgotten the other one. I wrote it down.
What was the one? 404 what? YOY?
404 YOY.
Yeah, I thought as much.
YOY. Which does sound a bit cruel. So, you know, there's a guilt element. And another one, which, oh gosh, I've written it down on an electronic note. Got to open up my electronic notes. Zzz, zzz. Oh no, he's just flying a plane, you fool.
Can I just say, while you're fumbling about for that, because you have a habit of choosing hilarious left-wing comedy for me to listen to. I thought I'd get my own back and give you something that is not based in reality, which I know you hate. For anyone just tuning into the Comedy Slab podcast, Adrian doesn't really do anything in the realms of fantasy. If it can't happen, you're not interested, are you?
Who knows that it won't happen one day?
Oh yeah, but the one day is a day too far for you, isn't it? Eh?
That sounds like my horizons are incredibly limited, but then you obviously believe that, so I don't think there's much point in me fighting against it. Okay, I've got another headline. Again, after the first viewing, Iranu 404. Now, where's that a reference to? What's that a reference to?
Do you know, I was never a fan of that, but I know what it's from. It's from, isn't it Iranu Ufafu? Isn't that?
Uvavu.
Uvavu, yeah.
Get your details right. You never watched it, you've just given that away.
I mean, I've seen it. I've no idea what it's all about. It's the Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Shooting Stars, indeed. Their own sort of manic take on a quiz show, panel show. I think they possibly fought shy, because that's what comes up in reality, isn't it? On a website, you know, if you're misdirected, as it were, it says error 404 rather than code 404. But then I guess who wants to call a comedy show with the first word error? That's a bit of a gift to headline writers, which, funnily enough, we are, briefly. And then I sort of came round to, I could see a lot more positives to it. But I'm afraid it is that for all that I hugely respect the talent that's gone into it, both on screen and off screen, and it clearly it's not thrown together. It's been invested in emotionally and technically and otherwise, artistically. But for me, it's a classic case of less than the sum of its parts, and I'm struggling to this. Well, I was going to say to this day, but I've been struggling over it for a few days and just wrestling with why is it not working for me.
Well, that's good, because that was my next question.
Yeah, but I've got an answer, which is a bit of an Iranu.
Well, let's pick it apart then. I mean, there is, and I know you double bluff it by saying, oh, well, you firmly believe that, so therefore I can't fight it. You know as well as I do that we've had this conversation before about your lack of faith in going with a plot that is too out there, that is too fantastical, that is too fantasy based. You do like things based in reality, don't you? I think you kind of get on with those better.
I maybe I agree with the latter part of what you say, the very last bit, that I get on with those better. It's certainly not true to say that I dismiss everything that's surreal. I mean, I love surreal comedy, and from the surreality of Kenny Everett in my youth, the radio artiste par excellence, and then of course moving to TV.
But it's more surreal. Isn't the same thing, is it? It's fantasy and surreality isn't the same thing at all.
Well, I wouldn't call this show fantasy. And actually, the joke is really about how human he is, isn't it? That they've put all manner of chips and electronics in him to bring him back from the dead. But the whole thing hinges, does it not, on the fact that he's a clumsy oaf?
Well, I'm not really quite sure what they put in him either, really. I mean, at the first episode that we watched, I'm not sure. He does mention there how he's been augmented. I'm not really quite sure how he's been augmented, because, they're saying, does it mean that you can't die? And he says yes, and all the boffins say no. and then he tases himself, and it's like, how has he been? I'm not even sure he has been augmented in a way.
No, he's diminished rather than augmented. But I suppose that's the PR of the geeks who've put him back together again, supposedly.
Yeah.
But no, I am genuinely, and I've been anticipating this. My guess is, and you've given us a bit of a clue if you like Daniel Mays and what's not to like as far as his performance here goes, with the material he's got. I'll put that caveat in for me. But I'm going to guess you enjoyed this and chuckled along. Am I right? Or have I got it way out?
I mean, when you said having to go with the material that he's got, I didn't think the script or the gags were weak. I mean, I thought it was as strong as anything that would go a normal sitcom, a normal comedy. I think it wasn't. Did you think it was weak writing then as well?
Well, the first time through, I mean, it ill behoves me to have a go at someone who's helped write or solo written Not Going Out. I thought actually, and you may have corrected me on this already, or did Lee Mack not write any of Not Going Out?
I don't know if he did additional material. I'd have to check that. I'm not sure.
It's just, but I suppose that's a testament to how well it's written, that I thought it comes across so much as material that he can own. But then I'm also making a certain assumption that his stand-up stuff, and I've seen him live as a stand-up, I'm making an assumption without any evidence actually that he writes his own stuff there. But he could be one of those artists who's just, and then there are a lot who are able to so absorb. Well, it's both. It's the chemistry between writer and artist, isn't it? That you can't divide the two. They seem to spring from the same well.
Yeah. I mean, there was a wonderful section where they're in the car and he was trying to recoil. He said, I'm trying to think. He was trying to get him to think back to how the sting operation went wrong. And he's going, I've got a name. He said, I can't think. He said, Heston Blumenthal. And he said,
and that was a surreal gag.
He's a celebrity chef. And then a bit later on, he named about 4 others, didn't he? And
they're all celebrity chefs.
I think you need to let that go. It's that. It was that. I just thought it was kind of nicely done, nicely timed. I thought the gags were there. I thought the drama was there. So, I mean, the first few shots, the first scene when they're doing the sting operation. I mean, you could have been watching Line of Duty or Spooks or anything of that caliber, couldn't you?
Well, we'll come back to that because there is a link, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, Line of Duty. There's a very strong one, isn't there, with a few of them?
At least 2 links, and also a reference to him being killed in the line of duty, which, of course, is a phrase, a perfectly legitimate phrase, but you can't help seeing the glint in the eye of the writer and indeed the performers as that crops up as an actual comedy line, if you will. Because we've got Anna Maxwell Martin. She plays D.I. John Major's wife.
Three wonderful fellas, as Eric Morecambe would say.
Anna Maxwell and Martin. 2 of them fellas.
And he's got a lovely wife.
I enjoyed her in Motherland.
You filthy swine.
I'm sorry. Only at a certain distance from my screen. Let's not pursue that thought too much.
I drew the curtains first. I'm not a beast.
You drew the wrong conclusions. But we should say we we try not to issue too many spoilers, but we can't really avoid the fact there is a love triangle going on. We can't really avoid that because it's so central to the plot, is it not?
And I mean, I'm guessing as he goes to the series, it's going to be more of a plot point as well, isn't it? That whole thing going on that he doesn't know about. As he said there in that scene, you're always close. You always got on really well. Well, there's a reason for that, and I guess we'll find out a bit later. I'm still trying to get you to divorce the premise from the script and the gags, and see if you can prize those apart. Because I still think the premise is the thing that could hold you back. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm thinking, even when I saw it, I thought, oh, he's not going to like this, is he? He's not going to like this coming back from...
Is that why you set it as homework, just to talk to me?
Do you know, I'll be honest with you. I said that, and I was just having a bit of a wheeze with you because I probably knew as much as you did. I didn't. All I knew was the title. I didn't really know anything about it when I chose it.
But did you know Daniel Mays was in it?
That
might have changed your
view. I did. See, I've not so long ago rewatched it again. He played Ronnie Biggs, didn't he? Opposite Sheridan Smith, who played Ronnie Biggs' wife, the great train robber in Mrs. Biggs, I think it was called. And I've loved him his straight stuff. I've loved him in everything I've seen him in. He's just a fabulous, fabulous actor. The one thing I didn't realise, and he's from the other team as well. I don't know whether I should mention this to you because I know you have certain allegiances elsewhere, but he's an alumnus of Italia Conti. I don't know if you're aware of that. I know. I didn't really want to mention it. I did want to mention it.
You shouldn't have done. And by the way, before I forget, Lee Mack has got writing credits, only for a mere 84 episodes of not going out. But that is, whether that's co-writing or so, certainly solo writing for some of it.
Right.
So it's a complicated picture, isn't it? Putting the Conti school to one side, other schools are available.
You've got to be careful how you say that, in a certain light.
I think I fluffed it as it was.
The Conti school.
Well, that's maybe what I'll get called another rival drama school.
I don't know why you're so, because John was such a fabulous boxer. I don't know why you're so against it all. I'm not really quite sure.
He was brilliant. He lived not far from me.
Can I just mention as well? I didn't realise Daniel Mays was as tall as he is. He's
Stephen Graham is short, so there's a certain sort of
juxtaposition, isn't there? Yeah,
Laurel and hardiness to
he's
them.
Massively 6'2". Is he? Yeah, he's a big lad. But as you say, Steve Graham's 5'6", so
he's sort of Stan Laurel height.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So we were saying the premise versus the script versus the gags.
Well, I think you've got to revisit your prejudice against what you think is my prejudice.
I love the way you turn it round. When it's your prejudice against me, it's fact. But when it's my prejudice against you, it's the prejudice that I have against your prejudice, and it's my prejudice.
Well, look, this we'll park that because I don't even understand what was the third thing.
To be honest with you, I ran out of stage with it.
I can tell the conviction went out of you like a burst balloon.
I'm sorry.
But what I would say is I loved the techie bits. I thought were really good fun. I mean,
yeah,
I have to say, shades, that sort of thing goes right back to, for me, Hitchhiker's Guide, when that went to the TV. And that was all done on film, amazingly. They didn't have access to computer graphics in the same way then, or not the way they made it. So that's a bit of augmentation, isn't it? Because that's an extra layer. I wondered, though, whether, and this may or may not feed into your prejudice about my alleged prejudice, but I wondered whether the technology was overtaking the story. For all I've said that he's, in a way, extra human, and you're saying you can't quite see the augmentation, and that is in part the joke, or maybe it's the bulk of the joke.
Yeah.
I wondered whether the visuals were just doing a bit too much of the heavy lifting. The other thing was, listening back to that clip just now, we got a second audio clip, as we always have, a bit later on, but it just sounded like it was delivered at a rat-a-tat pace as if they didn't quite have confidence in it. I don't know that I actually believe that's the case, but that's how it's coming across. Do you
Right.
get any of that sense yourself? Bit
No,
rushed?
yes, I do. I think you're quite right. It was. I mean, if you paced it against something else, you would say actually they're belting through it. But I kind of got the impression that it was more about the character. That was more character driven than. And there was one point where Daniel May's character has stuck his head into a bag of cocaine, so that kind of will make you talk a little bit quickly as well. As we prove every week. But
I think we prove ourselves not guilty of having anything to do with that. The pace I deliver at and think at.
well, I have a bag of Canderel. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. So no, I mean yes and no. I mean yes, you're right in terms of speed, but I kind of thought it was more character driven, whereas you thought it was maybe like a confidence in the. I thought the material was great. I'll be honest with you. I thought. It was funny. I mean, there was no question. It was beautifully shot as well. I mean, that's the thing is that your point about the sci-fi element of it, the techie stuff, is that if they didn't do that well, you'd kind of go, it's like kind of let down a bit by that because it was a bit rubbish really, and it needed to be better than that.
Fair point. It does need to convince, doesn't it? And it's because it starts with I think the term in film is chiron, or at least it tells you what time this is set, and it says a few years from now.
Oh, is that where you with the dot along the screen, and it got oh right, okay, I didn't know that was called a thing.
Yeah, but I might have mispronounced it and misremembered it, so let's not dwell on that.
I mean, they've obviously been creative as well, and it's. I don't know if you even know the building. Do you know the Collins Theatre in Islington Green?
It was ringing some. I thought I was looking at a sort of a block in the Bloomsbury area.
You know the police station where it's kind of all in the round there. That thing that's an unfinished underground, the underground Collins Theatre, which is below Waterstone's bookshop in Islington Green. And the reason I found that is quite interesting is that a lot of places now. Because of the pandemic, are starting to say, well, actually, we're available for film crews if you want to come and film. So places like the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, or just south of Birmingham, instead of hosting exhibitions and concerts, are now saying to film companies, we'll have Hall 5 and you can go and film your whatever it is.
Right, but they'd be in competition with, obviously, the pre-existing specialised studio spaces or sound stages as they're called in the film world.
Yeah, this is more for people who want to go and film on location, but maybe don't want to stand out in the cold. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what they say. This article said that they've seen something like a 60% increase in the amount of venues being registered to be available to be film sets.
Well, I mean, we are in what seems to be a golden age of TV drama, at least, thanks to the streamers, Netflix and so on. So, I mean, you haven't quite played your cards up front. Did you riotously enjoy it, or were you just pleasantly amused by it?
I was above average, certainly. I mean, I was just thinking back to some of the lines. There was, when he was trying to explain to his wife how he's been augmented, and I think it was his wife who said to him, and he said, think of me as Oscar Pistorius. And they said, it's not a good his partner, I think, said, it's not a good example, was it really, because of everything that he'd done and been through and all the rest of it. There were just nice little references, gags. I think the interesting thing with this is because it's like a sci-fi comedy that I always think, and maybe this is my own indiscipline, but I always think, and I'm always impressed by them, if they rein, with the sci-fi, the more they rein themselves in, the less they go out of lane or off piece, the more less wild it becomes, the better for me. Because I kind of think that's the discipline with sci-fi. You can go anywhere, can't you? You can make and his boss is a cyborg and he's an alien and what you can do anything. And but the mere fact that you don't, I find quite impressive, is that they kind of kept it quite normal.
Yeah, and they've limited it to the one guy. I think there might be dramatic problems which are quite independent of any sci-fi, which is, and again, apologies if this is a slight spoiler, but it's just slightly developing the love triangle thing. But it looks like it's already set. I mean, maybe you could argue that that's the skill of the writers further down the line. But we already know Kelly Major, played by the three lovely gentlemen, as you say, Anna, Maxwell and Martin. She makes it quite clear that already he is not welcome. She's already adjusted because she's been carrying on in the parlance, or in the parlour, I'm not sure, with D.I. Roy Carver, played by Stephen Graham. So to me, there's not much intrigue in episode 1 because it looks, there's not this tension, will they, won't they? Is it on, is it off? It's most definitely off by the look of things. But then you could equally come back and say, well, maybe that's the skill and you could flip that around and say, well, the intrigue is what are they going to do with it? Because there doesn't appear to be that tension. So they've got to find something else in the toolbox.
And equally, you don't know what's going to happen in episode 2, do you? They could get back together and, it'd be a completely different narrative then. I mean, I just liked the fact that it seemed to have a strong narrative. I thought the gags were good. I thought the considering it was a sci-fi, I thought that it was believable in what they'd done, and I thought above average certainly for me in that sense that. And I'm always a bit wary of these kind of things. Did you get this? I noticed in the credits that somebody was credited with having the title of US casting.
Right.
And
as far as we know, that's one actor, isn't it? Oh.
Well, yeah, I mean, but why do you need US casting at all? Why do you surely there's some American actors milling about in London. I've no doubt about that. So should we come on then? Should we have another clip and
it must be time. That will help us all make up our minds. Or
see if we can raise a smile between now and the end of the podcast. In our second clip then, John and Roy, our two main characters, go to visit a drug dealer, a guy called Liam Cleesby. He was at the Sting when John got shot, and they go round to ask him a few questions.
Open up, Cleesby! It's Judgment Day!
Sorry.
Wrong door.
It's that one.
Cleesby!
Jesus.
No. But we both came back from the dead!
But you're dead. You got shot and you died.
Don't believe everything you see on the news, Cleesby.
It wasn't on the news.
Oh, wasn't it? Well, in the papers then.
And we've got some questions for you, Cleesby.
Or online, and let's face it, that's where most people are getting their news these days.
I answered your questions already. I shouldn't have been there. I'm drugs, not guns.
Look, it's all connected, and you know it is. Just tell us who's supplying the product these days.
Amazon Prime.
Answer the question, Cleesby, or live to regret it.
Is that a threat?
Oh, no, my friend, that's not a threat. That's a promise.
Except the promise to do harm is a threat. That's what the word threat means. So technically it's...
Yeah, I suppose. Then yes, it's a threat.
Yeah, it's still just not quite working for me. And I'm still at a bit of a loss on it. And I don't believe it's as simple as you're digging in on fantasy. Because that, I mean, if we were just listening to that clip in isolation, and I was trying to consider it in isolation, and the chemistry going on there, I mean, you wouldn't think there's any sci-fi element at all from that if you took that on its own. I mean, little things, but it's probably me looking for faults because I can't quite work out what's not quite coming together for me. But the Stephen Graham character, for instance, D.I. Roy Carver, lets him kick open the door and then says it's not that flat, it's the next one. Well, why would he stand there and let him do that?
Well, he did do it, didn't he? I mean, he didn't say, I'm going to go and kick this door in now. He just kind of leapt at the door and kicked it in. It wasn't
yeah, okay. I mean, this is relatively small details, but it's probably because the whole isn't quite convincing. I wanted to like it more. I always do. We always say that. But I think people clearly, as ever, should make their own minds up on this, and certainly shouldn't listen to me. And as for listening to you,
I'm going to go and watch the rest of the series. I think I must admit I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it that much that I will go and see how it turns out and how it pans out. And because from that we determine whether it's kind of got legs. So we do that from time to time. I'm prepared to
put in the legwork. Well, can you report back for me and for everyone listening? Because I genuinely want to know where they go with it. I mean, we don't want to issue too many spoilers, but whether you think it keeps some momentum up and you carry on enjoying it, which I hope you do.
Can I just, for me as well, the other thing that I thought was spectacular was the music. And it was no surprise when I looked at the musical supervisor on this project.
No, it's not that geezer again, is it?
No, it's a guy called Danny Layton. Now, Danny has written music for Grantchester, Broadchurch for ITV, Spooks for the BBC, and his crowning glory, Britain's Top Dog with Lisa Tarbuck. So
I'm glad you left that till last.
He's done some excellent work in his. Presumably, the last one that he did was like, you know, when they do samples of dogs barking, ruh, 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 on the keyboard. I'm presuming it was that kind of thing.
Well, you know who it was who first had a hit with that back in the 80s? A certain Simon Cowell.
Was it Simon Cowell that produced
it? Was Simon Cowell.
I bet he never even touched a keyboard in the whole operation either, did he?
He probably never touched a dog, but you can get arrested for that anyway.
I was going to say, he's lawyers.
Shall we look at...
He's lawyers.
Shall we look at the scores on the... Sorry, I keep talking over you.
Anyway, come on. I can't put it off any longer. I know it's going to be bad, but how bad is it going to be?
No, it's not going to be terrible. It came to me in a vision, a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
And that must be, arguably, from where I'm coming from, a slightly generous 3, but that's a recognition of the acting talent on screen. And, production values were definitely there. It's just this worry about a void at the centre of it. But people must make up their own minds, as I say. Okay. 3 out of 5.
Okay, I for me it was a 3.5 actually. So we're not that far apart on it, despite the fact that I liked it. Yeah, I mean, I
thought you might be a 4 the way you were talking about it. But you're not quite.
I wasn't quite at a 4, and I have to say this is one of the curses of only watching one episode, because this has happened to me before, and I've looked back at it. I've really enjoyed something after watching the series. And this is the problem, isn't it? It's like, you know, if they write a series, it's like if you write an album, you know, if you're a musician and you're designed for everybody to listen to all of it, although that's becoming less and less relevant these days. But with a series, and I've gone back and I thought, why have I only given it that? And it's because we've just seen, it's a snapshot that we see. So next week's homework.
Your clue, briefly, is if you don't listen to this, you'll be a moron. Gordon.
Oh, John Shuttleworth.
It was that Gordon that clinched it, wasn't it?
I've interviewed him as well. More of that.
You can name drop next week about that.
I'll have to try and dig it out and have a listen and see what we talked about, because you often ask me that, and I think, God, I don't know, it was years ago. I can't remember what I said, but yeah, good. Yeah. So which of the Shuttleworth dynasty is it then?
Well, it's series 4, because actually it turns out he's done a run of half-hour shows, but these are the earlier duration 15-minuters. That's how it all started out yonks ago. The 2 episode titles, so it is The Shuttleworths. That's the name of the series, obviously. And then the episodes Cough in the Loft and Chrome Alone. So sounded like you might be laughing already, or at least sniffing.
Fantastic. All right, looking forward to that. Nice bit of radio as well. Be catching up with that one. Don't forget, if you want to be part of the conversation, more and more people are doing it now. We're getting on our Facebook page in particular, but you can do it on Twitter or wherever you grab your social media. Find us at Comedy Slab first of all, and let us know what you thought. If you've watched an episode of something we've watched and you strongly agree or strongly disagree, let us know why, because we're always intrigued and interested. In fact, I had a note. We were talking about phone jacker, all new phone jacker last week. And I haven't got it up in front of me on the screen, so apologies. But somebody sent me a note and said, that they weren't a fan of prank shows, and do you know what? I never even considered Phone Jacker as a prank show. So people say things, and you kind of think, oh, it's a completely different way of viewing stuff, isn't it? Really, so quite interesting for us.
It can open our eyes and ears, and I didn't even get round to referencing Candid Camera last week, but that's something you really will have to Google if you're under 40.
So that's it. Thanks for your company this week. We've enjoyed it, and we'll be back next time with, as Adrian said, the Shuttleworths. We'll be able to look at that one. In the meantime, will be off to walk in the footsteps of the great Simon Cowell, and by that I don't mean start a multi-million-pound media empire. I mean I'm off to allegedly touch a dog.
No, allegedly not touch a dog.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Allegedly not touch a dog, yeah.
For my part, I'm going to see if they can rebuild me, but I'm not too optimistic. I'm going to be diminished rather than augmented.